Welcome you all back to the third session of Shaping Young Minds program with Mr. Mohandas Pai. Mr. Mohandas Pai is a chairman of Manipal Global Education Service Limited and senior vice president AIMA as the speaker, and Mr. Joydeep DattaGupta partner Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu LLP and past president CMA as the session moderator. Before we request our dignitaries to be seated on the dais, I would request the 10 student panelists to please be seated on the respective seats on the stage. Now it is my proud privilege to invite on stage Mr. Mohandas Pai, the speaker of the third session, and Mr. Joydeep DattaGupta, the session moderator. Before I hand over the proceedings to Mr. DattaGupta to take the program forward, let me have the privilege of introducing him to you. Mr. Joydeep DattaGupta is a partner with Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu India LLP and is a member of the consulting executive. He is the clients and markets leader for the consulting practice. Apart from his role in consulting, Mr. DattaGupta is a regional practice leader for the East region and is on several committees in the firm. Mr. DattaGupta has 25 years of experience in management consulting. His experience includes business strategy, business process transformation, large ERP implementation, strategic information systems planning, and information systems risk management. Mr. DattaGupta has been on the leadership team of several global technology implementations in India, the US, Mexico, and the Middle East. He has worked on the global IT strategy of large companies. His experience includes performance improvement across the domains of finance, supply chain, human resources, and information technology. He has also advised several Indian and global clients on setting up and managing their shared services in India. Mr. DattaGupta is a past president of Calcutta Management Association. I'll now hand over the proceedings to Mr. DattaGupta and request him to introduce Mr. Mohandas Pai and take the program forward.
Thank you. And it is a privilege for me to be here introducing Mr. Pai and then witnessing the session or listening to his thoughts. Padma Shri TV Mohandas Pai is with us today. It is an absolute privilege for Aima and Calcutta Management Association, and I think also for IIM. Okay? He is one of the celebrities in the world that I come from, okay? And he suggested that I might only restrict the introduction to 2 minutes, to 2 lines, which is very difficult to do, given that probably it takes 2 hours to introduce him, because he's a man of so many achievements. And I would like to single out a couple of them, if I may, sir. The first, of course, is your contribution to Infosys. And through your contribution to Infosys, your contribution to rebranding India in not just business, India in terms of business, but the respect that all of us get when we get abroad. When we go abroad, I think Infosys has a huge contribution, and Mr. Mohandas Pai has a huge contribution to the success of Infosys and where it is today. I'd also like to mention another element, which is Akshay Patra, which is something that he founded, which is absolutely transformational. And this is an NGO with a difference, because I think this is an NGO which also finds itself into management books, okay? In terms of the process maturity that they have. They are serving something like, 2.5 million meals, 1.6 million meals per day. This is the world's largest midday meal program. And I have had the privilege of watching a presentation on that, on the efficiencies. Any corporate would benefit from watching the process efficiency, the governance, the management of this institution. When he was a CFO of Infosys, of course he's got so many awards, but apart from that, he also placed Infosys in a position where the Infosys, the stock price of Infosys traded at a premium because of the transparency, the disclosure, the standards that Infosys had in reporting. And this found its way into many management books as a case study on what you need to do right. And behind all of that was Mr. Mohandas Pai, taking them global, the NASDAQ listing, all of that was a huge contribution. So he's developed two world-class organizations, and that is really amazing. Now, obviously, a man of such eminence is on various advisory boards, committees of both the central government, state government, corporates, industry bodies. And it is a true privilege for us to have you with us here today. For me, it's a huge privilege, and over lunch we were talking about, I have come from Bombay last night, I'm going back again this afternoon, so Mr. Mohandas Pai was saying that's a very expensive 1 hour, okay? So I said, no, because this, although it's called Shaping Young Minds program, I think it can also shape old minds. So I'm hoping that my old mind will get shaped a little bit by listening to you, sir, okay? Apart from that, this is that one opportunity that I have, because 2 weeks ago, my son had the privilege of interviewing Abhinav Bindra at the Calcutta Literary Fest. And they were sitting just like that, next to each other, and it was Joydeep DattaGupta and Abhinav Bindra. So this is my one opportunity to bounce back, okay? So thank you, Mr. Mohandas Pai. Right? Okay. Now, without much ado, we need to release him by 3 o'clock sharp, because he has a flight at 5:45, okay? And if we are to believe Google, that means we need to leave at 3 o'clock. So I'd like to request Mr. Mohandas Pai to talk to us, to share his insights on what's going to be our future, the future of the world. We keep hearing about disruption, okay? So robotics, RPA, so much has come about. Technology keeps marching on ahead. So many geopolitical changes happening. Move towards, in many countries of the world, including the US, seem to be becoming protectionist. So in this global context, what is the future for India? And what is the future for everyone in this room? I'd like to request you to talk about that, please.
Thank you, Joydeep. And folks, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I thought I'll share some views on how the big disruption is happening in the world and how it's going to impact all of us. I think it's very important, because you're going to spend your whole life managing this big disruption and the change. And to understand this, we need to go back a bit into history. It was nearly 200 years ago that a very big disruption took place in the world which changed civilization. And that is the time when the steam engine went off a patent. And that was the age of the machine. Till then, human civilization depended upon muscle power and animal power. So countries that had large populations like China and India dominated the world. In the middle of the 18th century, China and India made up 45% of world GDP. And that's the time when the machine rose in Great Britain. And the machine meant that you could have factories, you could have labor working 12 hours, and the machine could duplicate what was done. It could lower the cost, and it could make sure that you could have large batches at the same time with consistent quality. And it changed the context in a very dramatic manner. Till then, the wealth of a nation depended upon the spoils of war or the ability of his artisans. And India was an artisanal economy, so was China. So the wealth was in these parts of the world, and the rest of the world was very, very poor, right from the start of the Christian era. I'm sure you know all this data. What did these machines do? The machine led to the rise of a new class of people who dominated the world, the merchant class. Till the machines came, civilization was essentially run by a feudal class which depended upon land. So they were the kings, they were the lords, they had people who worked on the farms, who were the serfs, are like slaves, and the produce of the land went to them and they lived in comfort. And suddenly, 300 years ago, trade started after the Renaissance, trade between the West and the East, starting with the Arabs as middlemen, and dialectically with Europeans going to Brazil, discovering the New World, or discovering India with Vasco da Gama coming to India in 1500. And those were small events that happened and that gave rise to city-states like Venice and other places. But when the machines came, there was a dramatic increase in productivity, and in this productive game, the merchants gained the most because the merchants had capital. Trade gave them great riches. They had capital, they invested, and very soon we saw the rise of Europe, the decline of Asia, the decline of China in India in just a period of 100 years. And it also meant the exploitation of labor and the start of the perpetual battle between capital and labor. Being in Calcutta, you do understand the battle between capital and labor. I suggest you read Thomas Piketty, Capital in the 20th century, when it speaks about how capital is taking a disproportionate quantum of the value that's been created as against labor. And this fight between capital and labor led to great developments around the world. The age of the machines gave rise to the age of the empires, and the world was divided into empires. In the East, you had the Japanese Empire, then you had the Russian Empire, the Chinese Empire, the Indian Empire with the Mughals in decline, and the British trying to take over this country. Then you had the Ottoman Empire, you had the Habsburg in Austria, and then you had the French Republic and the British Empire. And of course, the empires in South America were destroyed by Spain going there. Now in 1914, just one little assassination in Sarajevo started the First World War. And the First World War was a catalyst for great amount of change. Till the First World War, people could travel around the world. You didn't need a visa. There was no Trump, and there was no documentation. People went and raised capital in London. You could float bonds all over the place. It's a very different kind of world, driven by commerce, driven by the creation of wealth. Then you had this war because an anarchist killed Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo, and that led to Austria-Hungary, the great empire there, for 600 years, saying that they're going to go and conquer the land, and they had treaties with other countries. And willy-nilly, Germany came to their aid, and then Germany went against France, and then Britain came to the aid of France, and they attacked Russia. Russia was under the Tsars at that point of time. And they started this war with cavalry and infantry, and then it led to the killing fields of Flanders, where the bloom of Europe, enormous number of young people were killed. 16 million young people were killed. And you must remember that when wars are fought, it's people like us who declare the war, and people like you who go die in the battlefield for a reason you don't know why. So at the end of the war, the world was changed. At the end of the war, you had planes, you had rudimentary tanks, and you had mechanized armor. And that led to the destruction of the Tsarist Empire in Russia, with the Bolshevik coming up in 1917, and the workers trying to take over, Marxism being put into practice, socialism coming into force because of the exploitation of labor and the disgruntlement of the population. It led to the destruction of the Habsburg Empire after 600 years. It led to the decline of France, the rise of Great Britain. It also led to the rise of America. Till 1910, by 1910, America had become the largest economy in the world, overtaking Germany, which was there for 10 years, which had overtaken Great Britain, right? And the Americans came and fought on the side of the Allies. And you must remember, 1 million Indian troops fought on the side of Great Britain at that point of time. And this 1919, there was the Treaty of Versailles, when they drew up an agreement forcing Germany to have reparations, which led to huge inflation, and the story about wheelbarrows of currency to buy a loaf of bread, and the rise of Hitler. And the Treaty of Versailles also meant that they divided the entire Middle East between them. The Ottoman Empire, which has been ruled since the 14th century by the Turks, was gone. And they tried to divide up Turkey, except that Kemal Ataturk came and fought back because they wanted to give it to Greece. And in 1921, he abolished the Caliphate. There's something called the Caliphate. The head of the Muslim world was the Caliph, Sultan of Turkey, who ruled over Mecca and Medina. And now we have a new Caliph coming up in Baghdadi, in the ISIS, right? The Islamic State. So you're seeing, these are all history that happened. And these people carved up the Middle East. So you had Syria, you had Jordan, and you had Israel coming in because of the Balfour Declaration, the House of Commons. And you had Palestine being divided. You had Saudi Arabia coming up. You must see the movie Lawrence of Arabia. You'll find some part of the story there. And so Middle East was all divided. And the problem in the Middle East goes back to the time in 1919 when the Middle East was divided, the demise of the Ottoman Empire. The unfinished agenda of the First World War led to the rise of Hitler in the Second World War from 1939 to 1945. In 1939, when the Second World War started, America is coming out of the Great Depression. Wall Street crashed in 1929. And then you had Roosevelt come and do the New Deal to bring back. And you must remember in economics, John Maynard Keynes came with the theory of the general theory, which led to state intervention and the state investing, the theory which Manmohan Singh tried to follow in this country too. And that is, and at that point of time, interestingly, Friedrich Hayek from Austria, the Austrian School of Economics, and John Maynard Keynes had an argument how to run the economies of the world. And sadly, Keynes won, and the problem is being felt today because state intervention has become very, very large. So the war started with the German Blitzkrieg, mechanized armor, mechanized infantry going and conquering the whole of Europe. France was conquered, and they went and fought against the Poles, and the Poles charged the tanks with their horses. They still had cavalry. Then Hitler conquered the whole of Europe. He bombarded Great Britain. Then he made a mistake in Operation Barbarossa by going against Russia in the winter. So by 1945, Germany had been defeated. Japan, which went and entered the war by bombing Pearl Harbor and tried to conquer Asia, had been defeated with 2 atom bombs being placed on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And you must remember, east of India, in Kohima, 1,500 Indian and British troops fought 10,000 Japanese and defeated them and started pushing the Japanese back. The Battle of Kohima was the greatest battle of the Second World War. The war ended with aeroplanes and bombardment, with missiles from Germany. The V-2 rockets came from Germany, bombarded London at the closing days of the Second World War. And, the whole battle had changed, and 60 million people died. 60 million people. 16 million and then 60 million. And their world was divided into the Warsaw Pact and NATO, which Trump is now trying to, break up, right? So and that's the world that came out of the Second World War, a very tired world where Europe was gone, America had become the superpower, Soviet Russia had come and conquered the eastern part of Europe, and you had Japan, which was defeated. Were fighting for their independence. The British Empire was soon gone, and decolonization started. And in 15 years from 1945, 60% of humanity which was colonized had become free. And the world you see today is a result of all this. Now, this is the impact of the age of machines that came by. And after the war, we saw Japan coming up, Germany coming up, then Southeast Asia, now China. China has become the largest economy in the world in PPP terms at about $20 trillion. US is number 2 at 17.75, and India is number 3 at $8.75 trillion. So in this world today, the way the world is, we are also seeing the fight between battle between capital and labor tilting. Till the Second World War, labor had come up because of socialism and communism, and then you had the post-war welfare state coming up in the UK, Great Britain. They called it the UK because they're no longer great. It's become a small little island, an American aircraft carrier off the coast of Europe. So you had, the labor government coming and the welfare state coming up in Europe, and the welfare state going down with Thatcher coming in the 80s to dismantle, Reagan coming in America to dismantle, America becoming the greatest empire in the world, then Reagan taking on Soviet Russia breaking up, Russia coming into being, and the rise of China, and possibly the rise of India. Right? Now, this is the aftermath of all that happened. But 15 years ago, another small thing happened, which is now going to disrupt the way you see things, and that is the rise of the internet. You might all laugh and say, why the internet? Please remember, before the age of machines, the world traded in a very small manner. In the age of machines, you have centralized production, assembly lines, the first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, the third industrial revolution coming with the PLC machines. And in the age of machines, you have supply chains all around the world. You manufacture in one area, you supply to the whole global market through the supply chain, to transportation, or through pipelines, or through retailers, wholesalers, bankers, and everybody else adding value. Because between the consumer and the producer, there was a huge gap, right? And the gap has to be filled through the supply chain. We saw Vinny talk about part of it. But now with the internet, the world has come together for the first time in human history on one single common platform where you can connect to each other synchronously or asynchronously. The accumulated knowledge of humankind is all put on the internet. 5,000, 10,000 years of learning of the human race is all on the internet with rich lectures. You can get any data that you want. You can get any lecture that you want. The best professors in the world talk to you. You can download the lectures. You can see the movies. You can go to museums. You can do anything that you want and create your own community so that Facebook today at 1.5 billion, I think, is the largest country in the world, overtaking China. And the world has changed. And the age of democratization of society has come because you can't suppress people. You can't suppress information. So Tiananmen Square saw China trying to close on the country and they couldn't. We saw the Arab Spring coming up in Cairo recently and the news went out because of social media, because of the internet. So you're entering a very new world. So what does the rise of the internet mean? It means that we can communicate, we can get knowledge, we can get information, we can do e-commerce, and we can get entertainment and anything else. So we created a globalized world bound together by collections of people all around the world and the decline of the nation state over a period of time. Because geographical boundaries no longer become relevant. Of course, the EU has come into being. And this is going to transform because there are many more disruptions happening. In the midst of this, there are three big changes happening. And the first one is globalization. Globalization driven by trade, driven by the United Nations, driven by international finance. $5 trillion of foreign exchange is traded every single day. Money is flowing across boundaries, national boundaries, trying to find markets. 70% of international trade is between transnational corporations globally. It's between these corporations all over, control the world. And goods and services being available to almost everybody. And in the midst of this, you have the mobile device. There are 7 billion people on the planet, maybe a little bit more, and 6 billion mobile devices, 3.5 billion connections. And through the mobile device, traveling anywhere, you can connect to the web and you can do business and you can do everything else. So you moved from the mainframe to the AS400 to distributed computing to the rise of the PC, and then you have come on to the rise of the mobile. So technology has taken you this far. So globalization brought the world together. Now the forces that brought the world together are trying to go against globalization. Because globalization after so many years, maybe 60 years, has proven that it's benefiting a few people. Because when countries open up, globalization happens, the highly educated, highly skilled benefit, are the people with capital benefit, are the people who are in technology benefit, the great mass of people do not. In the United States, for the last 15 years, middle class income has not gone up. In fact, till about 1 year ago, income had come down by $5,000, right? With the great global financial crisis, it brought down. Jobs, good jobs are disappearing because they're getting automated by technology. And they're getting offshore and they're getting outsourced. Manufacturing is moved to China, services is coming to India. So jobs have not gone up, and people are now questioning the benefits of globalization. While income has gone up all around the world, it has come up in the emerging markets, the advanced countries or the developed countries have not seen much in the last 15 years. And that's why Trump comes as the messiah of the people who have been left out. Tell them, we'll make America great again. We're going to get your jobs again. We're going to get anything again. I don't know what he's going to get because he's going to drive more jobs outside America by his policies. But he resonates with people. So you've seen the rise of Trump. You've seen the rise of Brexit, where Britain decided to go outside the EU and try to be an island once again. You've seen the rise of Le Pen in France. Le Pen is the rightist, she could be the government. And you've seen Narendra Modi come up in India, going against the old socialistic notions, the UPA, the old tired stories in West Bengal, which is a part of history. And coming up with a new narrative of growth and development, which is attractive to young people. So there is an anti-globalization move that is coming, and that's worrying people all over, asking questions like basic income. Switzerland had a referendum on basic income to say that the state will give 2,750 euros to every individual, 975 to young people, because they said you're not going to have jobs in the age of automation. So there's an anti-globalization wave coming, and globalization is in a mess. The second big thing is demographic change. The world is aging, especially the developed world. The population is shrinking in Europe, Scandinavia, the population decline. In Russia, the life expectancy has come down. Men are drinking too much vodka and dying. So they're all coming down. And in Siberia, the Chinese are coming. France has got 15% North African Muslims coming in. and they're coming in a very big way. The Syrians are coming in. In Germany, 2 young people are required to pay the pension for 1 senior person now. 10 years back, there were 3. But the population is aging. The median age in Germany is 41 years. 25% of London is Asian. That led to Brexit. So you're seeing this kind of the society aging, not enough babies being produced, young people not becoming a large part of the population, and the social compact that bound Europe together after the Second World War trying to break down. In the United States, 2 years ago, more non-white babies were born than white babies. United States is a white nation. By 2050, the Hispanics will be the largest ethnic group overtaking the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And that's going to change politics. So you've seen Obama come up. You've seen this movement against Hillary because she's a woman. And you've seen the rise of this ugly American redneck like Trump becoming president, right? So the demographic there has changed. And if you look at China, China just grew 4.5% the last decade. The one-child policy in 1978 has meant that China may become older before it becomes richer. Only last year they said you could have 1 more baby. They're producing some more babies, but not enough. China produces 16 million babies a year. So China's population is declining, and 2 years ago, the working age population of 650 million peaked and is now coming down. Japan is a case in point. Last calendar year, the Japanese produced only 985,000 babies, and 1.25 million Japanese died. The population of 126 million may decline to 97 million by 2050 and 67 million by 2100. Am I speaking too fast? You're understanding, right? Okay, keep your ears open, okay? So the Japanese population is declining, and India too, we are seeing population stabilize. You'll be very surprised, the whole of the south is below the replacement rate. Replacement rate is a TFR, total fertility rate of 2.1. 2.1 babies per fertile woman in the age group of maybe 18 to 45 or whatever it is. But the whole of India today is at 2.3. And the south is 1.7, below replacement. In the state of Kerala, the population grew only 5% in the last decade, and 9% of Kerala is Bihari. Because the Biharis are coming to Kerala, you get 750 rupees per day for unskilled labor and 1,200 rupees for skilled labor, and that's the new Dubai for them. So whole families are coming. In the Chowth festival, I think they're all going out back home, and that's creating confusion because the Malayalis find they could become a minority in 20 years. And this churning is very worrisome. West Bengal's fertility rate is 1.6 as per the latest National Family Survey. And the Bhadralok is going to disappear in Calcutta by 2030. Because all young people are going away from Calcutta. Every educated young person is coming down south. I came to a global meet and told the whole audience with Mamata Banerjee that we have got about 150,000 techies in Bengali techies in Bangalore and 750,000 people from Bengal in Bangalore. Out of a population of about 1 crore, 10 million, 750,000 are Bengalis. They have Durga Puja, Hilsa, and all the nice stuff. And they're all going abroad, and they're doing very well. So the cream de la cream of Bengal is coming down south to Bangalore. So the middle class in the Bhadralok is going to become smaller and disappear here. Punjab's fertility is 1.6, Bihar is 3.4, UP is 2.8, Rajasthan is 2.4. And India has 935 women per 1,000 men, and 35 women, it appears, don't want to marry, do anything with men. So they're now going to have babies. That means our fertility rate could be below 2.1 if you look at all this data together. So we're undergoing a grunching change in this country, which is going to have a deep political impact. I'll talk to you about that. So demographic change is happening very well with the aging of society. So the prediction of the United Nations that the world will have 10 billion people by 2100 may not happen. The world could be very much less. The third big change is technology. Technology has reshaped our lives like nothing else in the last 15 years. The first was the internet, then computing power. With the cloud coming into being, is an enormous amount of computing power. And I'll talk about that, give you some examples later. But technology is changing in every single manner and disrupting whole industrial system and our societies. Now, if you look around, which industry is getting disrupted? Let's look at oil. The world consumes 92 million barrels of oil a day. 31 million barrels come from the OPEC countries, right? Now, the price of oil was about $150, $145 a barrel 2-3 years ago, and now it's come down to $55 a barrel. That means that the oil industry, which was about $6 trillion, has come down to $4 trillion with money going into the hands of the consumers. And that means countries like Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, which had a budget at $95 per barrel, or Venezuela, they're all going bust. Of course, Saudi Arabia is living off its reserves of 750 billion, which has come down to 550 billion in 2 years. But nevertheless, they're having a deep change, and that could have geopolitical repercussion. This was driven by one great technology called fracking. Fracking is when you drill down vertically and horizontally to tap into small pools of gas and oil stuck in pockets in the earth. And by tapping into that, America is becoming a large producer. American production has gone up from 2 million barrels a day to 8 million because of fracking. And fracking is now viable at $50 a barrel. And earlier it was about $70 a barrel. Now it's $50 a barrel. They're very viable and they can bring it on very fast. And America has just passed a law allowing America to export. In 1971, America passed a law banning exports. Till then, they were one of the largest exporters of oil in the world. Now America is passing a law again, and gas has become cheap and viable at $2.50 per BTU in the United States. So in the oil industry, we are seeing a very big change, and the ability of OPEC to manipulate goes down, and that has repercussion. Then you look at alternate energy. 2 years ago, there was more investment in alternate energy than in conventional energy like coal. So solar and wind are seeing much more investment. And I just saw a report which said that 35% of energy in the UK was solar and wind in the months of November to December. So they become a very significant part. And in India, the grid power from solar has come to 4 rupee 35 paisa, which is less than what you could get in a thermal power plant right now. And people say by 2030, 30% of world energy will be alternate energy, wind and solar. And in Germany, the largest energy company, which is E.ON, broke itself up into two parts. One, a coal generating company, another one, a transmission, distribution, and alternate energy company. And the market value of the alternate energy company has gone up. So the gut-wrenching change happening in alternate energy too. And this is going to change, driven by smog, driven by climate change, and all the nice things, and the lowering of the cost of solar panels because of China. And at the same time, in the automobile industry, which produces 1 out of 6 jobs in the world, you're seeing the rise of the electric car. Last year, the world made 600,000 electric cars. This year, it will make 1 million electric cars. The world makes 80 million vehicles a year. 21 million in China, 18 million United States, 18 million Europe, 5 million Japan, and India is 3, and the rest all over the place. An electric car has only 20 moving parts. An electric car is a piece of software which you download. An IC engine has got 2,000 moving parts. An electric engine costs $1,500 to support a year, and an IC engine costs $10,500. So the economics works very differently, with Elon Musk coming out with that lithium-ion battery in Nevada, where the cost of the battery will come down by 30%. We're going to see the cost of electric cars come down from $35,000 to maybe $15,000, $20,000. And China is producing electric cars. When China produces electric cars, people say 70 to 80% of all cars produced in the world by 2030 will be electric cars. And electric cars implies that the cost comes down, and the cars will have a different characteristic, which is autonomous cars. Today in Singapore, there are autonomous cars where you call a car on an app and the car will come to you. You sit on the car and it takes you where you want based upon the app. Because they got radar, they got IT, they got artificial intelligence, and the car can drive by itself. In Europe, just about 6 months ago, a line of trucks drew 1,500 kilometers without a driver. And in America, people are excited with autonomous trucks because a truck goes only 600 kilometers a day, and you're not supposed to drive more than 4 or 5 hours at one time, 9 hours a day, whereas the truck will go 24 hours. And the drivers will all be gone. So all the roughnecks along all the motels, they'll all be part of history in another 5 years. So you're having this rise of autonomous cars, and the IC engine may go away. So energy is getting disrupted, oil is getting disrupted, alternate energy is coming, the IC engine is getting disrupted. The next big disruption is in manufacturing. Manufacturing till now has been what is called reductive manufacturing. Reductive manufacturing means that you get a piece of ore, you melt it, make into a molten piece of iron, you cut the iron to create a part. Now we've got 3D printing. 3D printing means you take metal powder or plastic and print out the components. 3D printing has printed out houses, in Dubai. They printed out aero engines, they printed out rocket engines, they printed out pieces of your skull, pieces of your bone, they printed out chocolate, they printed out body parts. In Bangalore, a company is printing out liver parts too, blood vessels, etc. And very soon they're going to do much more exciting things. 3% of the world's production today is by 3D printing. And when 3D printing becomes larger, it has a severe repercussion. For example, you want a car. You go to the PC and download a designer car made for you by a designer in Bangalore. Then you press a button next door, there'll be a machine printing out the car for you in the way that you want, using metal powder in just about a day, or maybe less than a day. So what happens to the supply chain? What happened to all the part designers? What happens to all the distribution? Everything is gone because you can do it very easily. So 3D printing is coming up as the next big disruption in manufacturing. And then you come to life sciences. What is the biggest asset anybody has got? Your life. You get older and you die. Nobody wants to die, right? Especially the billionaires who are very, very large in number. So people are putting money into life sciences to make sure they can live longer. One, stem cell research. If you've got something going wrong with your body, you can pump it full of stem cells and regenerate your organs, right? And then if you fallen sick, you need a surgery, robotic surgery. In robotic surgery, you do a 3D image, make a small hole, and the robot goes inside and does what it has to, and you can go home in the evening. So robotic surgery is coming up. Bespoke medicine based upon genetic testing. They take your DNA and find out what is wrong with you and give you medicine which meets you. Because the medicine that you take is based upon tests. And all of us are genetically very different in a small way. So you could have reactions, but they give you medicine based upon genetic testing. And then they're funding companies in Silicon Valley to fight cancer. What is cancer? Cancer is the growth, unregulated growth of cells. Some cells grow in unregulated manner, and that's cancer. They're trying to find out the DNA of good cells to trigger them to fight the bad cells. So you got good cells, you look at the DNA and put in a chemical and trigger them to fight the bad cells to push out the cancer. And then the holy grail of all, aging. You know, we are told that at the age of 30, you start aging because your body cells don't regenerate in the same manner you do till you're 30, right? And that's why in cricket, you find that when you pass 30, you cannot play those outrageous strokes. You saw Sehwag hitting Shoaib Akhtar for a 6 over a third man. You saw Tendulkar pulling, Megat from just outside the off stump to mid-wicket for a 6. But you saw Tendulkar after the age of 30 fumbling a bit. You saw Dravid going to Australia getting bowled 4 times, but in bat and pad because the eye, the leg and the hand coordination slips a little bit, and at that pace, you're gone and you retired, right? So they're trying to find out what is the cell, what is the trigger in your DNA that makes the cell stop generating again, and trying to reverse it. Imagine if your cells stop this and you go on to 50 before you start getting older. So you could live up to maybe 100, 120. So with stem cell research, everything else, the holy grail of longer life is looking to come true. And that is the repercussion. That means people who are rich, who got money, will live longer. People who don't have money will meet the maker much earlier. And that's going to change dynamics again, unless you go confiscate everything. So you're going to see it in life sciences, you're going to see it in manufacturing, right? Then you're going to see it in technology. Now Watson has defeated the best chess player. Another high-performance machine has defeated the best Go player, right? With artificial intelligence, machine learning, with robotics coming, you're going to see many change. The drones go over Waziristan and bash up all those terrorists. They control from Nevada. So you've got drones going, autonomous drones going. You've got missiles coming from a long way, driven by technology. You've got unlimited computing power, which is creating huge quantum of ability to solve the world's problems because you can write algorithms. You've got artificial intelligence, which are algorithms which have been developed whereby machines learn by themselves. Self-learning to a machine is very dangerous because that is the 4th industrial revolution. The 4th industrial revolution happens when machines learn how to, manipulate and set themselves, and they get data from sensors all over called the Internet of Things. And using all the data, the production line can be streamlined because the machines will decide the setting based upon data. If the market data comes in to say that the demand for this model is going down, you've got to do this, immediately all the parts will come, it will be assembled, the machines will decide by themselves. You don't have to reset the plant. And with machine learning, where the machine gets trained, it will work. For example, in the hospital in Bangalore, we have tied up with IBM Watson, which has got 45,000 oncology cases. Diagnosis for oncology, that is cancer. So whenever the oncologist goes sees a patient and come out with something and puts a diagnosis, you find that Watson will go through in 22 seconds, will come out with an answer with the right or wrong, because he's got 45,000 cases. He tries to fit in, because everything human beings do can fit into a pattern, provided you get enormous amount of data. So big data, analytics based upon big data, pattern recognition, machine learning are all coming together. And that's why the disruption is going to start with machines becoming intelligent. And if machine becomes intelligent, you don't require a human being to set the machine, and jobs go away. And that's a big, big danger that's going to happen to everybody, because jobs are getting automated. Then you're getting robots. Now you have robots doing many, many things in the world today. The robots will do heavy lifting. The robots will, do assembly line operations. The robot will recognize people and drive cars for you. And the robots are the largest selling domestic utensils in Japan. In Japan, there are 35% of people above the age 65. Now they're lonely, they want somebody to make the breakfast, the tea, and make the bed. The robots are doing it for them. And the robots can become warm, and the robot can talk to you. He'll talk to you when you want to talk to somebody. Just imagine that, they'll not talk back. He'll say very nice things to you. You can hug the robot, it'll be very warm too. So robots are invading the home too, a very precious space for human beings. Tomorrow we could have a situation where robots will go into war, like Star Wars, and they'll all be controlled. Now, globally, security experts are debating, how do human beings control machines which go into war? Do machines have the right to decide to kill people in war? So the ethical dimensions of machines deciding for themselves is something that's becoming debated all over because of the rise of machines. And lastly, disruptive finance. Disruptive finance is changing the context. The innovation cycles maybe 2-3 years ago were just about 36 months. Now they come to 18 months. There's a lot of money available. $10 trillion of sovereign debt is at negative interest rates. Because of all the QE, quantitative easing, money has been pumped in the financial markets. So money is available, right? So what was the GSEC market has come down to almost zero. In Switzerland, up to 3 years deposit, you have to pay money to the bank. The fixed income market has now become the GSEC market. The equity market has become like the fixed income market. And the venture capital industry has become like the equity market today. So you're seeing financial services getting disrupted. And in this disruption, the payment system, which is between the borrower and the lender, is getting disrupted with the mobile financing, with algorithms, with robo-finance. The lending market is getting disrupted with automated lending. The securities market is getting disrupted with people trying to invest in various assets because of robo-finance. Today you can go and ask your own robo that you want to buy a housing loan for 25 years, get me the best rate. The robo will go to all the companies, negotiate, and try to get to the best rate in half an hour. You don't require a consultant. The robo will recreate a portfolio for you. The robo will get you information. Now, these are all actually happening. And the midst of it in the stock market, 60-75% of trades is all algo trades, driven by algorithms. So market volatility could increase, and that's happening in India too in a very big way. So finance is disrupting. What is the result of all this? The result of all this is, by 2030, we're going to see dramatic change. The energy market will be changed with alternate energy. The automotive industry will be changed with electric cars and autonomous cars. The manufacturing will be changed with 3D printing and design. And then the life science industry will be changed with better medicine. And a baby born today could live up to 100 in the United States. Maybe people live up to 120. And finance is going to drive this kind of a massive change in innovation much more dramatically. And there are going to be a lot more machines and intelligent machines taking over. That is a scenario in which all of you have to go build your careers. And it's going to be very exciting. Now, what is going to be the impact on jobs? From analysis that we have made, the jobs that require the left brain and the right brain, creativity and logic, right? Creativity and logic. That is lateral thinking and logic. People who are in that business, like architects, like designers, etc., will do well because the machines will take some more time. 2, people who are very creative, like artists, designers, speakers, Amartya Sen, I don't know, he could get disrupted, but people like that here, they're all, going to survive and do well because the individual performance. People who worked in rule-based jobs. Rule-based job means jobs which are repeated, jobs which can be set to rules, for jobs for which you can create a software and have an algorithm, their jobs are going to get automated and the jobs are going to disappear. And that's why in America in the last 15 years, the number of good middle class jobs in offices has come down dramatically. In India, in the last 15 years, banking assets have gone up 15 times, liabilities 15 times, profit 20 times, employees have gone up 5%. In India. It's happening in India. In all the auto industries, manufacturing has gone up to 3 million cars. I think all these auto companies are less employees than before. Raymond's announced they're going to create a new factory where they're going to eliminate labor by getting in machines and robots. Foxconn, the largest employer in the world with 1.1 million young women, destroyed 50,000 jobs by having robots, and now this year they're going to have 200,000 jobs more where robots are going to come into manufacturing because the dexterity of the robot for soldering and doing the assembly has become very, very high. Because these girls, instead of working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, are asking for a raise. It's outrageous. How can you ask for a raise? Well, the machines are going to come and take over. So in all these activities, manufacturing, in services and others, we're seeing this massive drive. In the United States, the cost of a robo, fully loaded cost is $5 an hour. And they want to raise the wage from $9 an hour to $15 an hour. And there's going to be a fight in this area too. And that's why you have Trump and all this. So jobs are going to be very, very tough. So the skills you must have to survive for the next 30, 40 years, and I'm sure all of you are going to live up to 90, 85, 90. You're going to have a great time doing whatever you do. Hopefully, you'll all get basic income. So the jobs that you have to do, that means you've got to have problem solving, and you've got to make sure that you understand. You've got to be individual performers. You've got to have some specialized skills to survive. Even education is getting disrupted. I go to the professor's class. The professor teaches me a problem. I Google, I get the answer. And the professor comes and shows me a research paper, I know much better because I can Google. And if I don't know the answer, I put into Quora, and hundreds of people answer me that problem every time. So why should I put my, hard disk with a lot of unnecessary information? I can go and have fun and then do something, right? I should learn how to address problems, and then I can pass any exam, do whatever you want, because knowledge has become a commodity. And the midst of all this, they're trying to do brain research. The mind, your brain, works because the billions of neurons which connect with each other through weak electrical impulses. And emotions are a chemical reaction. Love, hatred, affection, fear, they're all chemical reactions in the brain. So neurons, meet with each other, and that leads to memory retention, right? Now they're trying to find out how these weak electrical currents operate and try to put impulses into your mind, into your brain. They found out on mice and some rabbits that if you just put impulses, you can see a very different reaction from that animal compared to what it would have done. That means, can you control the mind by putting in impulses? Maybe a day will come when people implant a chip and all the information, 25 years of education will all be in the chip. And you have to learn just how to handle problems or just, have a great life doing almost nothing. So all these developments are changing. There is great disruption, and we are in the midst of it. So I want to stop here and answer any questions you might have.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Sangeeta Verma. So as you said, like 30 to 40% of our university syllabus have become obsolete that we are studying, and it's become obsolete, and robots are taking over, the automation, rapid automation is taking over. So being a management student, how do we still be relevant in the market?
What is management? Management is applying data to decision making. So you have a problem, you take data to analyze the problem, and you come to a conclusion and have a decision. That's management, right? So management is not about theory. Theory is a framework that you have to come to a decision, right? Now the data is going to be rich because you can do data analytics to give you finer granularity in data, but you must have the ability to make decisions. So yes, the old theories of management, the old theories of how to approach things will go away. So very soon you'll be sitting in a place where you can access data and decide very, very differently. So that the way to prepare is to understand the problems that bedevil businesses, the strategies that businesses have to do. So you've got to think like a strategist and innovate and come out with unique solutions. If you develop that ability, you'll still do well.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Akanksha Singh from NSHM College. I would like you to say some views that how the students who are stepping up to their first career in job, what are the important factors that they should keep in mind while they are stepping up into the first step of their career?
Well, like I said, first you must have a problem-solving ability, all right? You got all problem solvers as managers. Second, you got to have demonic energy, enormous passion and energy, 24/7 working, 7 days a week, no work-life balance, is all work. First 10 years of life has got to be all work, work and work, because you're competing with everybody. And please remember, it is not the fastest who wins, it's the person who runs faster than others to win. In a forest, if a tiger is chasing you and everybody is running, the person who's going to be eaten is the slowest of everybody, not the fastest. You don't have to be a sprinter. So you've got to make sure that you're competitive, and for that, you must assimilate data, develop a problem-solving attitude, and generally be ahead of the crowd in terms of what is going to happen. You must go from the macro to the micro and the micro to the macro simultaneously. So you see macro, what is happening. Elon Musk is coming out with an electric car. The factory in Nevada has come up. Electric cars can go up to 5 million in another 5 years. What is going to impact for me and my industry? You have to analyze and come out with a strategy and start preparing for that. So you've got to be highly tuned into what is happening. And it's important you read, you analyze, you see what is the cutting edge, and then stay there.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Charanpreet Singh. So, sir, as we all know that you help us to improve the business ecosystem. So, I want to know that how you improve the business ecosystem.
You know, the business ecosystem has to improve by greater productivity. There are two things that determine the fate of countries and economies, and that is labor productivity, capital productivity. Labor productivity comes with automation, with efficiency, with increases in better supply chain. You know, in India, the supply chain costs are 14% of GDP. China is 6, America is 5. That's why we are uncompetitive in manufacture, because goods can come to the port in Mumbai from China, and we won't be able to sell from Nagpur because the supply chain costs are too much. So you have to improve this productivity and efficiency. Then capital productivity has to become better. Capital productivity means that you must earn about the cost of capital, and for that you must reduce the cost of capital by lower inflation, by lower borrowing rates, better spreads, and better competitiveness. If you're able to do this, and if you're able to create an environment where it happens, you can compete.
Various prestigious institutions and organizations. Sir, I would like to ask you how you have been able to manage your time efficiently.
How have I been able to?
Manage your time efficiently.
Well, I don't manage my time, you just get dragged along. You see, I have an abiding passion to be the best in whatever I do. All right? It is something that is individualistic to me right from the time I was in college. And after college, when I was in college, I became a chartered accountant after college. I had read 3,000 annual reports. And I used to go to shareholders meeting and badger them. All right? Ask them questions. We draw out a company's management from Bangalore. And then I started my practice, and I went to the Infosys AGM and asked too many questions for Narayan Murthy, so he hired me. And as CFO, I set standards for this country in every way, in finance and everything else. So it's just an individual, passion that you have. So each one of us is built very differently. So I don't know what motivates you. For me, what motivates you, I got to be the best. In everything I do, I got to be the best. And remember time in Infosys when Nandan was coming and becoming the CEO, he told me, will you work for me? I said, sure, I'm here, I'm going to work. He said, I want to give him a small piece of advice. I said, what? Don't try to win all the time, let others win too. But that's individualistic. So all I'm saying is, I'm built very differently from you. So even now, I'm working in the area of startups. I'm trying to build about an ecosystem in startup policies all across, improve the tax system, the regulatory system. I set up 10 funds. We have 160 investments in startups with $325 million invested. We're going up to 300 companies, and we are setting up a huge ecosystem to make sure that we foster this kind of an entrepreneurship. So, time, you get dragged along. To come here and speak to you for 1 hour, it cost me 1 full day. I start off in Delhi at 6:30. I'm going to reach home at 8:30. I've got a dinner at 8, which I have to go, and I'm going to go to bed at 11. So these are the things that happen to you. So it's individualistic.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So you have been closely
associated with different industry association. You are the senior vice president of AIMA. So you and this industry association, how this is going to contribute to the society?
What we want to do in industry association is to push for some ideas for transformation. You see, society is a place where there's a battle for ideas. And the good ideas should dominate. For example, West Bengal, communism dominated, destroyed your society. It destroyed industry, destroyed jobs, drove away young people. Because the idea which is so appealing to some intellectuals of the state controlling all economic activity is alien to human nature. It has failed in Russia, it's failed everywhere. In China, it's failed, they become more this thing. So the idea. So as an industry association, we are trying to further the idea of an open, free society based upon individual choice and individual freedom in the economic sphere. And influencing government policy, influencing good management. In good management practices to make sure we drive productivity and efficiency. So we are in the idea business in industry association. And everywhere we go, we try to promote that so that this country becomes very productive, we create a lot of good jobs, so young people like you have a lot of choices, much more than possibly we had.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Dias Chaudhary and I am from Army Institute of Management, Kolkata. So I have a question for you. As being you have already achieved a lot of achievements, you are also the CFO and you are the best CFO and you have got many awards. So I would like to know that during this period you have definitely faced many challenges, many things have happened and you have struggled a lot and finally you worked it out and achieved the success. So please tell us that how the mindset was, how you never turned back and you just moved forward.
Look, if you want to succeed, you have to be internally driven. If you believe you can be incentivized by a promotion or by somebody paying you more money, that person owns you. You have got to be motivated by yourself to do what you want, to achieve, to do better and better and better and better every single day. You got to have the fire within you, which will be so very charged, so much charge you that you do well. And that will drive you to achieve many, many things. And achievement comes to ideation, achievement comes to execution, achievement comes to completion of many things that you start. And and that's the way I was built. So I challenged myself. I didn't have challenges, I challenged myself. You challenge yourself if you want to set standards. And the world is a very fertile place for it to do. But I was fortunate to work in a company where we are all a set of people who wanted to do great things. So I've been very lucky because I worked in an industry which grew to be the largest industry in India in about maybe 20 years. Is a $175 billion industry. I worked in the industry which grew to be the largest outsourcing industry in the world as IT outsourcing in services. 5 of the top service companies in the world by market value in the top 10 are from India. Of the top 10 companies in software services who are 2 million employees, 1.5 million are Indian. So we disrupted the world with a new model. We have taken up the world's technology and we created 4.5 million jobs in India. So I was in the industry. And I was part of a company which set standards in most things. We set a brand, like Joydeep said, we set a brand for India, brand for Indians, and all of the world. Putin came to Infosys and said, why didn't you come and start Infosys in Moscow? Tony Blair came and said, why didn't you come start here, one there? So everybody come because it's an extraordinary company. So I've been lucky in my life. So it's been a fantastic life. But this industry is something that happened to me and you can do it only once in your lifetime. So now you must choose which industry you're going to work and what you're going to do and how you're going to be part of it. But it all depends on you. And it's very hard work. There is no work-life balance. There's only work. A lot of great personal sacrifice, family sacrifice. You don't have a family life. You travel like crazy. I suffered from exhaustion 3 times. That means you're so hardworking, work so hard, you're so tired that one day in a bed you can't get up. You're like an empty doll. So you have to go through this. It's the way you want to lead your life.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Shagori Kure. I have a question that what was the first thing that came to your mind when you co-founded Akshay Patra Foundation, and what were the challenges that you faced in doing the same?
Well, Akshay Patra came up in a very unique circumstance because it was in 1999, the NASDAQ listing was over, the best CFO in India, got all the awards, everything else, cock of the walk. But there's a strange emptiness in your life because you're feeling you achieved many things you want in the life. I didn't want to be CEO of any company. That's not my trip in life. So I said, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And in 1999, I was maybe 41. Okay? And if you get success as 41, like, Obama, right? Obama is still very young, 55. He's going to live another 30 years. What is he going to do the rest of his life? At 55, president 2 terms, then what are you going to do? So, there's an emptiness. So I thought, I must do something in the social area, which is so large that it will take a whole lifetime to achieve, but which is not so large that you can see progress every single time. So I went to Bangalore and met Swami Madhu Pandit of ISKCON, because I had read that they're building a temple. I went there and I tried to meet him. I paid some money, 1,500 rupees a month. We didn't get much salary in 1999. All right, then I went there again and met him, and I told him, how much you raise for this temple? He said, 40 crores. He got 40 crores from all the crooks, all the bad policemen, the crooked politicians. They all give money because they want to make peace with their God. So I told him, you have built all this, why didn't you do something for social service? He said, what? Build a school. He said, no, we don't want to run a school. I said, do a midday meal. Told him the story of M.G. Ramachandran, Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. M.G. was a very poor child. He grew up with hunger. And then he became the darling of the masses, became the chief minister. And when he became the chief minister, first thing he did was to say, I want to feed every child so no child goes hungry in my state. But the bureaucrats, being good people, said this non-plan plan, all kind of rubbish, World Bank will not approve and all that nonsense. So after 6 months, he called them for a feast, gave them a feast, opened the doors of his house. The street urchins came and ate the juta food. Then he told them, you will be transferred to Ramnathpuram or some boondocks tomorrow if you don't sign. They signed. 25 years later, children were 2 inches taller, 10 pounds heavier, metal mortality had come down, and child-infant mortality had come down. Education literacy has gone up to 80%, and women worshipped him. They built temples for him. So and so that he was in a coma in New York, and he got elected by a landslide. All the poor women loved him because he had given them the most important thing a poor woman would want, food for the child. We are a poor country. It's a terribly poor country. You won't understand how poor India was 30 years ago. So, I related to him. He said, okay. Then he said, okay, what do you want? I said, let's do a midday meal program. He said, all right. Then he said, I want something from you. What do you want? I want 2 vehicles. Gave 2 vehicles, 25 lakhs. Immediately, he was shocked. 1,500. Then he calculated the cost of feeding for a year is more than the cost of the vehicle. He was a good engineer, Swamiji, but not a smart guy. I could calculate better, I guess. But we started 1,500, went to 25,000, went to 30,000. We had no money. Went to 100,000, 500,000, then 1 million, then 5 million. So we had 1.6 million. We want to go to 5 million. And we've seen remarkable change. Children, small children eat enough for two grown men. They get a sibling and they get food home. It's so ennobling. And we feed 1.6 million. The cost is 11 rupees. We spend 350 crores a year. And many times we had no money. One time I remember we had 2 crores of debt. Then suddenly an angel came from nowhere and gave us a 2 crores check. Sudhamurthy gave us a 2 crore check. So we've been fortunate. It's very divine. Money comes. We don't have a corpus. Because the corpus is capitalization of misery. The Bill Gates Foundation is perpetuating misery because they got $85 billion. They should spend the money now to alleviate misery so there's no misery tomorrow. So we said no corpus. We got enough money for 6 months. It goes on and we want to shut it down by 2030. Because most NGOs want the problem to be perpetuated because it is their own survival, right? The problem goes away, where is the survival? If there's no poverty, the 3 million NGOs in India will disappear. Right? Because all the people want to make sure poverty is around. So it worked. It's something very unique that grew up and my life was very enriched. I had 2 things to look forward. My work and this one. It led me for the next 15 years to do very great things. Now I got another passion, startups. So you need a passion in your life. Work is a passion up to a point.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Akash. My question to you is, which 3 crucial values? Which 3 crucial values?
Relax. Just take your time. Tell me. Don't worry.
Which 3 crucial values to be? Sorry.
Take your time. Don't worry.
You want to turn later, then you can come back to your story.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Roma Bose and I'm coming from Future Institute of Engineering Management. Sir, my question is that whatever you have done so far in your life, from your younger age, you must have had role model in your life. So who was it and how it inspired you?
No, I had only two role models in my life. One is Mahatma Gandhi, because Gandhi did something incredible. All of you must read the life of Gandhi. Such a unbelievable person. Very honest, very straightforward, extremely courageous, a great leader who inspires hundreds of people, who gave hopes of millions of people. He fought the greatest empire the world has known just by the power of an idea. And the idea of ahimsa. And he's a true Indian, a spiritual person, a true Indian. He was not a brown sahib like Nehru. He was an Indian who understood India. He traveled all around India. He knew the poor of India. So people responded to him. He is the man on whose command millions of people marched on the street to face the British lathis and were shot and killed and never raise their hand. Such a great man. So, he's my inspiration. And the second is Narayan Murthy, because I worked with him. Narayan Murthy is a very tough person. He doesn't compromise on anything. He is very determined for results. For him, only performance is the only reality in life. There's nothing else. There's no emotion. It's only performance. You perform, you survive. You don't perform, you don't exist. And my trip in life was to beat him, to answer all the questions he asked me before he opened his mouth, and do much better than him. And I did it for the major part of my career. So he was an inspiration. He's a great leader. Very passionate, energetic. He could do anything. He worked very well. We went on road shows for NASDAQ. 9 meetings, 45 minutes, said with the same passion. And the night before the first roadshow meeting in 1999, he pulled out his tooth because the tooth was paining. He pulled it out himself and was in agony. But next day at 8 o'clock, he was sharp on the dot. He's an incredible human being. I think in India, there have been 3 great people after independence. First has been JRD, Dhirubhai Ambani and Murthy, who redefined this country. So I worked with him. So he's my role model.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Nabani Goswami from Future Business School. Sir, in 2003, when India government mandated the mid-day meal program, what do you felt at that time?
What is that?
In 2003, when India government mandated the mid-day meal program, what do you felt at that time?
What is that? 2003, when the Indian government
mandate the midday meal program.
Oh, midday meal program. Well, we worked towards that to mandate because we lobbied for it. We did it. And Prime Minister Vajpayee announced in Independence Day of 2003 that he's going to have Akshay Patra all around the country if you look at his speech. So, it was exhilarating. Because it solves one problem. Hunger is the most basic of human needs. No child in India should go hungry to bed. Every child in India should have education. Every child in India should be loved. And every child is our child. They may not be our biological children, but they're our child because the child is part of our society. And as a society, we owe it to ourselves to make sure that no child begs, no child is in the street. That's our right. We can never sleep till every child gets what is needed. So that is our dream. And when you saw Vajpayee announcing that, it was a fantastic, exhilarating thing.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, young man.
I asked him what he'd like to ask, so he's authorized me. He's got a very, very interesting question. So Akash is asking, what is crucial for us to become leaders in the future? So we've not touched upon leadership, so that is Akash's question around leadership.
Well, let me tell you my idea of leadership. Okay, I look at Gandhi. How was Gandhi a great leader? First, he was very clear what he wanted to achieve. So he had a vision and a goal. And the goal was India's independence. Right? Very clear. Second, he had a great strategy. And the strategy was non-violence. Why non-violence? Non-violence and civic disobedience, because violence can be met with violence. But non-violence cannot be met with non-violence. If you are the police and you put a gun, how many people will you kill in cold blood? We are human beings. At the end of it, your heart breaks. You cannot do it. You cannot massacre. Hitler did it. Hitler did it at one point of time. 6 million Jews he gassed. But you can't go on killing 100 million people, right? So non-violence was the thing. And the third, he's a man of immense courage who knew how far to go and how far to pull back. After Chauri Chaura, he pulled back the Quit India movement. Right? Because he said, if my people's hearts are filled with violence, there is no future, because even if you get independent, they'll still be violent. And violence is going to tear apart India. He did that. Next, he produced great leaders. He produced great leaders. He allowed others to take up leadership. And everybody was a leader in his own right. He produced thousands of leaders all over the country. He inspired people by his leadership. So a leader's got to inspire people. Right? Next, you know, you should lead by example. He led by example. You're the first to go and to march. You're the first to go stand before the troops on horses in South Africa, telling them to do their worst. So the first to go to prison. He's the first to fast to death. He said, I'm going to lead by example, and led by example. And he's a man of immense courage. Courage. Courage is required in everything that you do. And you're the shrewd tactician. Right? The Dandi March was a brilliant idea. When he went on the Dandi March to take a piece of salt, he was challenging the British Empire to prevent him from doing that. And during the period of the march, the world's media played all over the world and put Britain's nose into the mud. So he was a fantastic strategist and a great communicator. He had a very broken voice. You must listen to his voice. But he could communicate. He could communicate very easily, and people listened to him because he spoke in a language that people knew. So you got to communicate. And next, he created continuity and sustainability. He didn't bring his children into politics. You know, some Nehru brought his children into politics. You know the disaster that befell the country. I know he almost destroyed his own family for the sake of the larger cause. He did it. And then he never aspired for the fruits of what he set out to achieve. He could have been the emperor of India. He could have been whatever he wanted. But he didn't want to be ruling India. At the end of it all, he said, let somebody else do. So he pulled the self-destruct button. He knew when to go. As a leader, you must never hang on to power all the time. You must know when to go. Like Gavaskar said, go when people ask why, not when people ask why not. That's why when Kapil Dev went, when people asked why not, he's floating the ball. Sachin stayed on too long and people are telling, please go, please go, please go. Right? So you must go when people ask why. And lastly, his whole life was a search for truth. Because the whole of your life's journey is a search for the meaning of existence. Why are you born? What is the object in life? It's a deeply philosophical question. He tried to answer it and he called his life story, My Experiments with Truth. So he was an unbelievable man. So if you look at Gandhi's history, look at everything else, you get all the lessons of history, lessons of leadership. And any time you're in a dilemma, just think what Gandhi would have done. Yes, he's an old man. He goes in a dhoti. He's very poor. He has sandals. He has some queer ideas. You know, he's very ugly. He's got a stick. He doesn't have a tie, a suit, boot, a bank balance. He had nothing. But he's the most powerful man in the world.
Thank you. So, Akash, I think your question got the most passionate response of all the questions that were asked so far.
Okay, last question from...
Yeah, we can... there'll be one lucky person in the audience who can ask a question. That's the quickest hand up here. Okay? So, he was fastest on the draw. Right.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I'm Shomendu from Army Institute of Management. So my question was that we heard from you that everything is getting automated, robots are being installed in industries, and we heard about the 3D printing as well. So my question is that what is the current challenge scenario going to, we students like management of India going to face in this current scenario?
Look, I don't know. I struggle with the idea. I wrote an article in the Quint Bloomberg, saying that India is the midst of a demographic nightmare. Let me give you some data. For the last 30 years, India has produced 25 million babies a year. 1 million, I mean, out of that, maybe 10 lakh babies, 1 million baby dies before the age of 5. 24 attain the age of majority. I mean, 21 years. They want jobs. Out of 24 million, 30% don't want jobs or possibly get married. 52% of India's population is in agriculture, which is 16% of GDP, growing at 3%. 48% is on 84% growing at 10%. So there's divergence, right? So these people, so 70% of India's young people want jobs or want to do some economic activity. That means about 17 million. We produce about 5 million jobs. So 10 million people don't have jobs. For the last 10 years, 100 million young people, 10 crores, don't have bad jobs. Don't have jobs, have bad jobs. And that's why you have the Gujars, the Jats, the Patels, the Kamas, the Marathas, and all the Chennai agitation happening. I don't know what's happening in West Bengal, but something is happening, I guess. There are no jobs. Next 10 years, another 10 million. By 2025, there will be 20 crore young people in the age group of 21 to 45 with no jobs. In the midst of this, every year, 60 lakh people come out of colleges. 60 lakh youngsters. 10 lakh, 1 million engineers. Okay? In management, maybe 300,000. Maybe 20,000 accountants, 50,000 doctors, right? Maybe the rest of them do some BA in arts, in Hindi, or whatever funny thing they do. Now all of them are coming out. There are no jobs. So I'm trying to find an answer. What is the solution? I still don't know.
So basically, we wanted to know that what are the things we should be prepared with.
Exactly. I told you, you got to be a problem solver. You got to be among the top of the pyramid. And if you get a chance, go off to the United States despite Trump and work there.
Okay. Just to balance the gender factor, one question from any young woman.
Come on. Then? Yeah. A lady, please. Yeah. Yes, madam.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Shutapa Pal from Future Business School. We all know that in 2015 you achieved Padma Shri Award. So how do you felt at that moment?
Well, I felt nice that my country recognized me. It was a nice thing to do. That's all. I mean, it's nice, you know.
What was your experience?
I don't know. I went to the president's house. I sat down there. The president called my name. They said I got an award for business and social service. I went there. He pinned it on my lapel. So I felt very proud and very nice. And they gave it back to me. I went home and told my friends, and that is it.
Thank you, sir.
No, I mean, look, in life you get, people honor you, people get you something, but you must come to a time when you get it, is fantastic. If you don't get it, well, you feel sad and go on. You know, you don't aspire for it, because at a particular point of time in your life, many other things become more important. The idea becomes more important than all this. When you're younger, you want this craving. You want to be the best CFO. You want to be the best business person. You want to be the best and the best and the best. So you have that craving. Over a period of time, you must let go most things.
Right. So this has been a fascinating high energy session, because we have such a high energy speaker. He's so obviously self-motivated. It's kind of and from time to time, not from time to time, for most of the time, for an hour, your passion overflowed on so many subjects. But I suspect there are a few subjects on which you are more passionate than others. Okay, clearly Mahatma Gandhi is one of those personalities who greatly motivate you. Okay, you were absolutely passionate about Akshay Patra. Okay, and interestingly, you were very passionate about cricket as well, right? Which is not really listed in. That's not what Wikipedia talks about, but you were very much. You talked about cricket with a lot of interest. Okay, there are so many takeaways from your talk. I'd like to share some of the takeaways for me. The first takeaway is you have to work hard. There is no shortcut. You have to work harder than anyone else. Okay, so you have to work 24/7. There's no such thing as work-life balance for the first 10 years. And I suspect in the case of Mr. Mohandas Pai, there still is no work-life balance, okay? Because for him, work is life. Okay? So I'm reminded of a story which one of my senior partners told me that, you know, what is this work-life balance? For the first 15 years in my life, I did not work. The next 40 years, I only worked. And then post-retirement, I didn't work. So the work-life balance does not have to be on an hourly basis, right? It can. You can do it. But I wonder whether you had this point of view when you voluntarily took up HR at Infosys, whether you held the same view and put that into policy as well. I doubt it. Right?
No, there's a story when I took up HR. You know, the first day when I took up HR, the HR team came and told me, I met them for lunch, they told me, how can we trust you? I said, what? I'm your boss. What do you mean, how can you trust me? No, you've been the CFO. You didn't give us anything. You always said no to raise us. In fact, I gave them the stock option scheme. I created the tax-free scheme. They got a lot of money, created loans, made sure they got a lot of money. But you know, they're all greedy people. So I told them, look, till yesterday when you walked into my room, I saw you as the net present value of a future stream of revenues. Because I'm with a consulting company. I said, today when you walk into my room, I see a person who requires empathy, a person of emotion, and a person who got certain needs whom I must fulfill. So I'm a very changed person.
Right, okay. So The second takeaway from me arose from your erudition. What you pointed out is, you guys, you think, okay, this is tech, Infosys, technology company, okay, chartered accountant, very, focused on numbers, technology, stuff like that. No, you said you're a success, you're a huge success, you're an inspiration to everyone here. What we learned from you is, no, education, not literacy. You have to know history, you have to know geography, you have to know economics, you have to know politics, you have to know psychology, you have to know philosophy, you have to know a whole range of subjects, link all of this, you have to be contemporary, you have to know what's happening in the world, you have to know how much is oil price per barrel today, you have to know all of this at your fingertips, and then you will start looking at patterns. Pattern recognition will come in, and once you can see those patterns, you can predict what's going to happen in the future and how you should position your organization and yourself to deal with that future. You cannot do that by only doing your specific subject and going deeper and deeper and deeper into your subject. So that's a takeaway from me, and I hope all of you will also learn. It's not just what he says, but what he practices, which emerges from the talk. So that's a takeaway. The other takeaway for me was that look at the trends, look at the global trends, and clearly technology is a huge disruptor, okay? And robotics, etc. Many of the repetitive jobs will go away. That he doesn't have solutions, and I suspect nobody has solutions at this point in time. But we can think of certain trends or certain things that are obvious. Something that is obvious is that anything repetitive, don't get into something repetitive. Be in some field where your creativity matters, okay? Be in some field where your strategic thinking matters, okay? So anything which requires your intellect, anything which requires your creativity, and, be in a field where you can serve humanity, because humanity is not predicted to go away. In fact, the other way around, the rich people are expected to live till 120 and the poorer people till about 90. So humanity will be around and humanity will need to be served. The rich will tend to get richer and the poor may not get out of poverty. So there will be enough for all of us to do. I'd like to end by saying that the good news is singularity is predicted to take place in 2040. What is singularity? When robots become smarter than human beings. That's still a long way off. So you will all be well into your careers and you'll be all doing well before that happens to you. Okay? So on that note, I'd like to thank Mr. Mohandas Pai for taking an entire day off to be with us today. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Pai, for sharing your thoughts with us. May I now request Mr. Joydeep DattaGupta to present a memento to Mr. Mohandas Pai. We now request Professor Ashok Kumar Banerjee to present a memento to Mr. Joydeep DattaGupta.
All of you. Thank you. Wonderful morning. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful third session. We'll proceed to our fourth session now.